In this video, we will clean up our scene by first cleaning up the geometry, making sure everything is parented correctly. Then we will add a final master bone to our rig that we can use to move the entire rig all at once. We will then introduce bone layers and scene collections as an alternate way to hide and unhide bones and other objects in our scene. This will also help organize the objects in the outliner for easier viewing and access. Finally, we will clean up some of the old information from part 1 of this series, such as old constraints and animation data. We are almost ready to start animating this beautifully rigged robot arm we've created, but I want to tidy up our scene a little bit here so things are nice and organized. The first thing that I notice is this here. This origin here is not in the center of the geometry. And so what I'm going to do is select the geometry, and since it's parented to one of the bones, I'm going to press Alt-P and clear parent and keep transformation. We are in object mode, of course, and now I'm going to right-click, set origin, origin to geometry. And now it's right in the center of our joint here. And with it still selected, we can Shift S and then cursor to selected, which puts the 3D cursor right in the middle there. Again, if you can't see that 3D cursor, it's up here in the overlay dropdown, and just make sure 3D cursor is checked. Then if we select our armature, you can see our armature is off center as well. So we can Shift S and this time selection to cursor. And that's going to move everything up to match the center right here. And that does also move this up here a little bit past where it was before, but that's not a big deal at all because you can see everything looks like it's still pretty much connected how it should be. Okay, let's select this one and shift select our armature again, go into pose mode, and we need to parent this back to our base bone. So let's Alt-H to unhide all of the bones, and then we can just select our base bone, Control-P, and choose bone. So that way that is connected again to that bone. And then when we move our controls, let's just make sure we select the right one. And you can see, there we go, that is moving like it should. All right, let's go back into our resting pose. Let's go into side view again. And in the last video I said the claw controls are going to be the last thing we added to our rig. Well, that's not entirely true. In fact, we need to add one more bone that will be able to move everything all at the same time. So let's tab into edit mode, and we don't see anything here because we've hidden a lot of these here. So let's Alt-H here to unhide everything. And then with this bone down here, we just want to come in and make sure this head piece is the only thing that's selected. And then E to extrude downwards, and then press Z to constrain it up and down, and we'll just pull it all the way down, something like this. Alright, so if I click and I drag this, you can see it's not connected in any way, it's not parented, we don't have any relationship lines, and that is the way we want it. So what we want to do is, let's tab into pose mode. We want to parent 3 bones. We want to parent this one, which is our control bone, and the pole target. We want to parent all 3 of these to this bone here so that it moves with this. Because if I just move this one, you see that's not moving everything. So if I just shift select these 2, and then you can see I move this, but the elbow still points to that pole target, which is staying in the same spot. So if we want to move everything, we need to select all 3 of these, and then they move all together. So I'm going to right click to cancel that, and with all of these selected, let's tab into edit mode, and then shift select this one. Control P, and then choose keep offset. Now you can see all of these parent relationship lines, which is what we want. So now if we tab into pose mode, oh, we have broken our rig. Now, can you guess why this might have happened? In this series, when we have come across something that has broken our rig, what has it been? If you answered a dependency loop, you would be absolutely correct. So let's see what's happening here. Let's undo this until we don't see those relationship lines anymore. And then tab back into pose mode. You can see this is still disconnected and nothing is parented to it. And we're back to normal here. So if I parent these 3 to this one, that means these 3 are going to follow the movement of this one because they're children of this one. But this one is actually already a child of the IK chain. And what I mean is if we select our IK bone and come to our IK constraint, you can see that the chain length is 0. And if you remember from the video where we set up our IK chain, it starts here. You can see this is the yellow relationship line for the IK chain, and then it will end wherever the bones end, however many bones there are, because a chain length of 0 defaults to however many bones are behind the IK bone. So if we had 5 or 6 or 7 bones or whatever, it would continue on down, which means that this bone is part of the IK chain, which is supposed to follow this control. So there's our dependency loop. We have these pieces following this piece, and then this piece is following this piece at the same time. They're all dependent on each other for their movement. So when you move them, it's going to cause lots of glitching. But this is a really easy fix. Just select the IK bone and then come over to the chain length and set it to 2. So now it looks the same, but it's only including this one and this one in the chain. So it's starting here and saying 1 and then 2. That's how many bones we're going to use, which means this one is off the hook. It's not part of the IK chain anymore. So now we can shift select these 3 bones again. Tab into edit mode, shift select this one, Control P again to parent, keep that offset, and since this is not parented to anything itself now, because we've disconnected it from the IK chain, it's free moving. We should be able to tab back out into pose mode without a problem, just like this. And if I just select this one, I can move it and everything that is attached to it will follow, which is the whole rig. So this is exactly what we want. Right click to cancel that, and we can just make sure everything else still works like it should. Okay, and that does look like everything is working. And if I click and drag that, you can see it moves without a problem. There's no glitching, stuttering, nothing's going crazy. All right, so let's go back to our resting pose. Now, of course, we still need to parent the base geometry to this bone. So let's go into object mode, and you can see we have 2 pieces actually. This is the one that we disconnected a while back. It's just kind of a rogue piece that's floating out there. So let's select that one first, then shift select the base down here. Make sure this is the active one, the one that's selected last, and then we're going to press Control J, which is join. And immediately now these are one object instead of 2. And they've been joined to the main base here at the bottom with the origin that's at the bottom, which is what we want. Okay, so now with this one selected, we can shift select our armature and then go into pose mode, make sure this is the only one that's selected, Control P and bone. And now when we move this bone, everything follows along like it should. And we can put it over here and move the controls, moving our robot arm just like normal. And we can put it over here. Something like that, and move it. But let's just undo all of that and come back here. Now it's a little bit too easy to select the other bones, the ones we don't want selected, and move them, but we don't want to be able to do that because that's going to mess up our rig. So we want to hide them again, but we're going to do it differently. We're going to do it in layers this time. But before we do that, let's change the shape of this new bone, which is really easy. Just select it, come to our bone properties tab, and let's actually change the name here. So we're going to say bone base and then underscore, I'm going to type all, because this is our bone base here, and then this is our bone base all, which has everything parented to it. And then let's just scroll down here and choose our custom object as our empty circle, which we created before. And let's increase the scale here a little bit, something like this. I'm just going to type in 2 here. That's good enough. And let's go into side mode, and we can bring this down on the, what is it? Is the Y here? Yeah, it looks like it's the Y. So let's see here. We're going to bring this down here like this. Oh, it looks like 1, so we're just going to type in 1. That's good enough. It's close enough to the ground for our purposes here. Okay, so we can just click and drag that really easily. So this is going to be one of our controls, so we will have 4 controls total. So let's select this one and then shift select the rest of the controls. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the ones we want to see. And if we hover over the viewport and press M on the keyboard, we can see our bone layers, and it's currently on this layer. Now I can select any other layer to change which layer the controls that we selected are on. And they disappear because Blender is not currently viewing all of the other layers, it's only currently viewing this one. And I want to keep it that way for the controls. But now with these 4 selected, I can press Control-I to invert the selection, so all of the rest of the bones, the ones that are not controls, are selected. Then I'm going to press M again and move those to just the next layer here. So now we can only see the bone controls, and if we need to bring those other bones back, we can do that really easily. All we have to do is come to the Object Data properties, and here are the layers. We can choose between the 2 layers. We can go back and forth, or if I shift select, I can actually enable both of the layers at the same time. But if I just click on one of them, I can see either the background bones or the controls. All right, great. So I just want to see the controls, so this is good here. And so we're going to do something very similar in object mode this time, but instead of putting things in layers, we're going to put things in collections. So if I select my rig, I can press M again. And remember, Blender is context sensitive, so when you hover your mouse over different areas, the buttons that you press will do different things. So make sure you're hovering over the 3D viewport and press M, and then we're going to click New Collection. And then I'm just going to type in here arm_rig. Enter, enter. And now, if we scroll down here, you can see that we have another collection that has the armature in it, and I can just quickly disable that in the viewport by clicking this button here. Okay, with that collection disabled, I'm going to hover my mouse over the viewport and press A to select everything else, and it's going to select everything that can be selected. So right now, you shouldn't be able to see or select the empty cube circle, sphere, or can of beans. Let me just pull this down here so we can see the outliner better. So this is what it should look like. So let's come back to the viewport, press M, New Collection. This is going to be our geometry. Enter, enter, and now we have another collection called Geometry that we can hide. So here's our rig, and we can collapse that, and we can hide and unhide our geometry and our rig. Okay, so with these 2 deactivated, I'm going to come up here, press and hold Shift, and click this button a couple of times so all of the ones below are also activated. So Shift, click, click, Shift, click, click. There we go. So this is everything else basically. So A to select all, M, New Collection, and then I'm just going to type extras here. Enter, enter, and now we have all the extras, and we can disable that too. So this is going to help us enable and disable stuff in the viewport really quickly. We can also use these collections to select things too. So if I enable all of them, and then I Alt-A to deselect everything in the viewport, I can come to one of these like the extras, and if I want to select all of those and I don't want to click and drag or try to painstakingly select all of the right ones, I can just come up here, right-click extras, and choose Select Objects. And then it's going to select all of the objects that exist in this collection. And I can do that for anything else, so if I come here and just click out to deselect everything, and right now I can just click and select any of these geometry pieces individually, but if I come to geometry, I can right-click and then select all of those objects. So this is going to be really helpful if we want to view, select, or hide multiple things at the same time. Okay, something I'm noticing here now that we have our extras enabled is it looks like we still have some animation. So I believe this is on our can. So if we select this button, that shows only selected, and then we select our can, and yeah, and you can see that there. I don't think it's on any of these other ones here, but it doesn't really matter. If we deselect show only selected, that means it'll show all of the keyframes in the entire scene, making it really easy for us to hover our mouse down over the timeline, press A to select all of them, and then X and choose delete keyframes. Because that was our previous animation from part 1 of the series, and you can see we also still have this blue relationship line from part 1, which means there's still a constraint on our can of beans. So let's select our can and pull this up again, go to our constraints, and yeah, we still have this child of constraint. But we're not going to need it because we're going to use a bone to do the same thing when we do our animation. So I'm going to click X to get rid of that. Alright, one last thing. I'm going to select the arm rig collection here in the outliner, and then shift select the extras, and that's going to select the entire range. It's going to select all three collections, and I can just click and drag those into the main collection here. And you can see it says move inside collection, and I'm just going to drop them in there. And now we have one big collection filled with three separate collections inside of it. Okay, again, don't forget to save, and let's test out what we have so far. So I don't want to move it, although I could move this. Oh, let's hide our extras over here, because we don't want to see the empties over here, but we do want to see our can of beans. So let's enable those again, and then select the can, press M, and let's actually go down to the existing collections and choose our main collection here. So just go to collection and collection, and that will put it right alongside the other collections within our main collection. So now we can disable the extras and still see the can. And then with the armature selected, let's go into pose mode. And like I said, I don't think I need to move this anywhere because I think the robot arm is still in reach, but we can test it out. So I can just click and drag this over here like this and pull this up here. Yeah, look at this. Look how easy this is. Let's go into top mode and we'll pull this over here like this. We can clamp down on that can by using this control. And look how easy this is to place with just a few clicks. So what we can do in our animation once we actually animate, we can have the can be on the ground and then animate the arm picking it up and then moving it over here and stretching it out to put it on top of some sort of shelf or something. So it looks like everything is put together. We have our rig working exactly how we want with the controls that we want. Let's just go back into resting pose. And we also have our entire scene all tidied up and organized in a clean, logical, and easy way for us to finally begin our animation, which is the next video, finally. So when you are ready to animate your robot arm, head on over to the next video.